So this is my textual lineage, or the books that I think defined me as a reader. When I was a really little kid, I had these amazing reading role models. My parents read tons of picture books to me when I was not old enough to read myself. And one of the first books they ever read to me that I can really remember is Gregory the Terrible Eater. It's a picture book about a goat who loves to eat fruits and vegetables, even though his parents say, hey, we live in a dump, you must eat rusty old tins and discarded car tires and old shoes. So Gregory has to, rage against the machine that is his parents and stand up for himself and his individuality. So when I got older, I was more interested in reading books like the Babysitter's Club series. That was the first series I think I read all the way through, and man, there's like 40, 50, 60, maybe more books in that series. So I was really excited at that point in time to actually be a babysitter myself. And so I think it was a way for me to kind of feed that curiosity about what it would be like to actually be in charge of kids and be a babysitter. So I moved from Babysitter's Club to Anne of Green Gables, which was an important series for me because it was the first book that I had ever read where the character was born and raised in Canada, which is my story as well. So I had never read a book about characters that lived in Canada. And even though this was historical fiction, it was this fascinating story, and I was so interested in what was going to happen between Anne and the boy that kept coming up in every book called Gilbert Blythe. Were they going to end up married? Were they even going to be in love? And I loved kind of the suspense of that part of the series. So in high school, I was much more interested in reading mystery and horror stories. So the first series that I really enjoyed, and I think it was really just because I liked scaring myself, was R.L. Stine's Fear Street series. So as I look at the covers of the books now, I think, oh my gosh, this series is ridiculous. It really probably wasn't all that well written or scary, but there was certainly, always a dead body, always a murder that characters that were my age at the time had to kind of figure out, and it was always the unsuspecting person who was the murderer. So I moved from R.L. Stine to Christopher Pike, who scared me even more. And I can remember reading this specific book called The Wicked Heart because of how scary it was. There was this one scene that I remember reading over and over because I was like, oh my gosh, that's so frightening, so disturbing. And I know that these types of books kept me up at night, but I enjoyed for some reason the idea that they scared me. So I think after that, it was really natural for me to find mystery stories as a really comfortable genre. And I read probably every book that Mary Higgins Clark ever wrote. And again, they're not even particularly well written. The characters kind of all blend together. I couldn't tell you what happened in actually this specific story, but I was so much a fan of kind of that formulaic mystery, and I liked trying to figure out who the killer actually was. And I even tried to write a book myself in very much the same style as Mary Higgins Clark. So fast forward to my life as an adult. When I was teaching at Timberland High School as an English teacher, my first 3 years of my high school teaching career, I read a book to my students called Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So it was required in the curriculum. And I had no idea that this was going to be a book that really would define me as a reader. So I felt like this book kind of contained many of the characteristics of books that I had enjoyed in the past. It was a mystery story. It was historical fiction. It involved a character who at the time was a lot like myself. She was newly married, and her husband was older than she was. And there was this woman that haunted their past. And her name is Rebecca, or her name was Rebecca. She was the wife of the woman, the husband in the story, and she was killed, and there is all this mystery surrounding how she actually died. There's another character in the book called Mrs. Danvers, and she is Rebecca's servant, and she is loyal to a fault. She makes it kind of her mission to scare the main character of the story, the protagonist, and she takes her up to Rebecca's bedroom, and there's this very spooky scene where everything has kind of been left the same. No one's been allowed in Rebecca's room since she died, and oh man, gives me the creeps even to think about it. But the book was actually made into a movie by Alfred Hitchcock. It's that scary, and it has all the makings of just a fabulous mystery story. So more recently, I've loved the book I'll Give You the Sun, and I've tried to recommend it to lots of students and staff. This is a work of art as far as I'm concerned. Jandy Nelson is this amazing writer who has the ability to create characters that feel so real. They are completely flawed in so many different ways, and this book is about a set of twins who were once upon a time very, very close, and the death of their mother causes them to kind of break apart in a very tragic sort of way. And the story flashes back between um, what happened before mom died or around mom's death, and then tells you the story of what's going on in the present. And you get to see how the siblings interact and try to rebuild their relationship and kind of recover from the secrets that they've kept from each other. It's just an absolutely beautiful story. And I thank Jandy Nelson for sharing that with us. So that's my textual lineage. I'm excited that it's really only going to continue to develop as I read more books. And again, think about those books in your life that have really inspired you, that have defined you, and that changed you in some way, shape, or form as a reader. Thanks for letting me share.